Well, good morning, everybody. Sorry we are late for what we were trying to get going. So, obviously, this is the first time I actually put an invite out there for to tell the world what we were going to talk about today. And if you, in case you don't know, this is my lovely wife, Leah. So, um, yeah, the system probably didn't, for some reason, didn't like it. So, and maybe because of the live I did with Jason last night, Jason Miles. We talked about a lot of things that aren't internet friendly too. So I've got back up today to get onto my live stream. Clicked on it and it said I don't have permission to go through my phone. Jumped on my work computer, no. Jumped on my laptop, no. Tried to just do a normal live, no. Yeah, so very, very interesting start to the day. So, all the higgledy-piggledy down the rabbit hole sort of things are very much possible when they're in charge of this sort of stuff. So, um, I was just talking to a lady on Messenger named Steph who reached out and just, did what some lovely people do, which is to say, they say hi and they, give me a wave and say good work. And I asked her what video she was talking about because I always like to have an idea of where people are at when I'm talking to them, so I don't go from spiritual medbeds to convid conversations or anything in between. So if you are reaching out, please understand that I do rattle on with a wide range of topics. So this morning our topic would be a second part of what Leah does, and I'll let Leah come on in and introduce herself as to what she's been doing and what she's up to with it. So, go for gold.
Good morning, everyone. So I guess today I just wanted to talk about using our intuition and discernment and our heart space. There's a lot of false light moving around within the spiritual community, and it's very, very easy to get stuck into something that's not necessarily truth, which is easy to see how that could be possible because that's what they do. They've infiltrated everything and changed everything, and why would the spiritual community be any different? But it's just trying to discern what is them and what isn't, and it's really, really tricky, especially when you think you're on the right path and then all of a sudden something will come up and you'll be like, oh wow, you get mind blown of, I thought that was true or that was right. Or
Can I butt in? Sorry. So in case you don't know what we're talking about, because you might have been following me down this page for completely different things to what Leah's talking about. Leah's talking about energy in the energy body and where people get their energy from for energy healing. Okay, so I'm just trying to give you some context of that because I see some names that are coming on here. And hi, Sass, morning. I see some names coming on here that might be usually jumping on to watch me film the sky or jumping on here to watch me talk shit about COVID or whatever. So Leah is an energy healer, and what we're talking about is the bad people that we know that are out there running the entire world. There is a movement basically of new age people that are basically cashing in on what people have been doing for a long time in the space of energy healing. So Leah started with Reiki and has moved on and progressed on from there. But that's just some context behind it because obviously I bounce all over the place. Leah's very straight down the line and structured with what she's doing with energy. So, sorry, go for gold.
No, that's all right. Yeah, no, it's good that you pulled me up because sometimes I will just be talking about what I'm talking about and other people will be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So, yeah, no, it's good for you to just jump in and, just help with that. So, that's good. So the New Age is exactly what Jodie's right with that. New Age, it's a New Age movement. So, there will be people out there that have cashed in, like Jodie said, that have, that the other side has gone to them and said, look, we'll give you X amount of, people, followers, and this, that, and the other, and money, and whatever it may be. But there's also people out there that are channeling, and not realizing what they may be channeling, or the information that they may be getting might not necessarily be from themselves, or from, it could be from this false light energy grid, which is basically the matrix. It's all an overlay of our reality here, I guess.
Ray said that she agrees from these people started popping up from 2020, and morning, Karen. Yeah, I agree with. So that's what that's what we're basically talking about, is that so many people are looking for an alternative now to what the mainstream has fed us for so long, that people are running in masses looking for natural health and spiritual healings and a lot, something different to their create a problem, sell you a medical solution, basically is what we're talking about. So and I listen to more of the spiritual ego side of the conversation, because Leah is actually connected to the energy and understands the light work and the energy work, whereas I sort of look and listen to the terminologies that they use. And so if you've been in a really dark place for a long time and now you're just sort of starting to wake up, and you were saying that, Ray, you were saying from, back from the 9/11 agendas, that's a long time to be awake, and it's a long time to sift through what was probably difficult to find. Now anybody that's coming looking for this new energy, you start clicking it in, and it's a hashtag moment. It's a trendy topic. And so people jumping into these people that are like, oh my God, you're a star seed, you're awake now, so you're a star seed, and that means you're special, and the only reason you're awake is because you're special, and you got sent down here on a gold, rocket ship that was blowing dollar notes out its ass and dropped you off here to save the world, here's your lightsaber, and, away you go. And so the spiritual ego is what they sort of tap into, because in the physical form, I guess, trauma and ego go hand in hand, with that repetitive cycle. And then you look when they're like, oh, well, shit, that works really well for these people in the real world. If you try and challenge any of the non-truth loving people, they just lose their mind, and their ego just says, bah, bah, they start screaming the narrative at you, and they don't argue with science, they don't argue with anything other than what they've been told by the mainstream media, but they criticize us for actually looking on it. So, that's why I sort of think that the spiritual ego is what they're coming back in with, the spiritual ego, because they were, well, it's a good model that works in human form. So let's just do it in the spiritual form, because the energies exist. And like I said in the previous post, Leah says, like what I don't see and I don't understand, I accept when it's sold to me. So I accept that this camera is, taking my voice and our faces and dissecting it into a billion nanoparticles, and shooting it to a tower, and shooting it to a satellite, and shooting it to your lounge room or wherever it is that you're having the fortunate time of watching us. And I accept that, because I know nothing about how it works and that, but I accept it because I've been conditioned by the system to say that. So why don't I accept energy that I can't see? Why do I accept that the sun is sending something invisible to my solar panels, and they're converting that into energy that's giving me the power to charge this phone? So, that's the level of physical 3D world information that I had to get into my brain for it to compute that it is possible. What do you think? Tappable?
Yeah. But I guess there's only so much that everyone, or each individual, can want to take on as looking into, because there's just so much, you can pick apart everything that they've done. It's just what time you have, what capacity you have, and what you're willing to look into, I guess. But that's that was another thing that I wanted to talk about as well, that as soon as you're awake, I guess you start following the same sort of people. I mean, we always everyone follows people, but at the same time, by following people, we're not using our discernment as much. So in this video, for example, I would ask anybody to just, whatever resonates with you, take that away and take it on board. But if there's things that you say, oh, I don't agree with what she said, or I don't agree with what he said, just move on past that, because we're not all going to agree on everything, or you're not always going to find one person that says everything that you agree with. it's whatever's our truth, you know, like Jody and myself don't agree on everything, but his truth is his truth and my truth is my truth. So it's just picking the pieces out on what you want to move with, I guess. Hey.
Yeah, it's it like in the 3D sort of sense of the world, you know, the best golfer has got the best caddy, and when it doesn't work out, when they're not working out, I was watching golf the other day, and that's what I was listening to. This guy was the best, you know, the best in the world, and then he changed caddies and he became the best at something else. Like it's a mix and match sort of thing, and like we said, you can't believe that they've got control of every single part of this world, and they have had for a long time. The people that are nefariously sort of twisting the plot on everything we do, you can't believe that you know that's the live was censored, and even if you both, yeah, sorry,
Surprise.
Yeah. We were just saying that we had troubles getting on with the live this morning because I actually wrote on there what we were going to be speaking about, so the system didn't like it. It glitched out a little bit. So, but yeah, we were just talking about the amount of misinformation and disinformation out there in response to like workers and energy healers and stuff like that. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that get upset that have been doing this for 20 years. I talked to Reiki masters that have been doing it for 20 years. And look, I don't understand the energy. All I understand is intent. And I think that goes a long way. That the best ingredients don't necessarily make the best meal. It is the way that you use it, the way that you use them, and the intent that you put into that comes out the other side of taste factor. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some things that are just absolute mint, but that can be just as much of a construct of your mind, like when you put Pepsi in a lemonade bottle and don't know that, and you expect to taste some way, and it tastes completely different. It blows your mind how different it tastes because your brain has already preempted what it was going to taste like. So, like for me, when you go to the best restaurant, 90% of the time you're going to be like, oh my God, this food is amazing, because you've already set up a bit of a construction in your head to say that that's what you're going to get. So, so we don't care where you get your information from. And we don't necessarily care where we get our information. Leah is following Tony Sayers at the moment, and he is like a hardcore negative person towards the New Age movement, where he just pulls people to pieces that sit online all day giving you these, it's all love and light, love and light, love and light, and all you got to do is just be happy and, and grounded and happy, and the whole world will just be beautiful, and you'll float around on a fairy dust cloud of, and then pull you into that with the, and you are special, and you are, you have been chosen, you're a starseed, and with no real evidence of it either. So it also sort of puts that a bit of a fake narrative into our minds, so that you're walking around and you're like, oh, what are you so happy about? Like, I'm a starseed, and they're like, okay, well, what does that mean? Oh, my spiritual guide tells me that that's what I am, and then and it really sort of muddles up the water, just like they do with their psyops and their false narratives and their fake flags that they do in the real world. So, I put a lot of information out there about the real world stuff, how they confuse us and how they create a problem and then sell you the solution. And then I look at it and go, well, the model works pretty well for them over here, you know what I mean? So create a problem with, all of their weaponry of HAARP and CERNs and all that sort of stuff that we know is by patent and by legislation, is their way to play around with the weather, because they've created the, global warming, climate change sort of agenda. They've made it a big deal because all of the big fancy people will get together. And then, they start saying, well, it's a problem, way before it's a problem. And so it sort of conditions you to say that it is a problem. And then by the time they actually start showing you that it is a problem, manipulating the weather and doing all that sort of stuff, it's already in legislation. It's already been funded by government. It's already been getting studied for 20 or 30 years. And then as they start shaking the earth and giving you the problem, oh, well, what do you know? We already have a solution. 20, 30 agendas and stuff like that were written long before we were having the problem we're having. So if you can imagine those same people and that same network of people who's basically here to keep our vibration very low, keep our energy negative, keep us squabbling amongst ourselves.
Yeah, they have certain patterns. If you can see the patterns, like if you look at this world like the Matrix, right? Like that everything's got patterns. Everything's numbers or got patterns. And their patterns are like what Jody said, the fear, but it's also the opposite, the love bombs. So anything that's like over the top, beautiful and loving is probably going to be them. Like when they talk about like what Jody said about, that you're special. I mean, we're all special, but it doesn't mean that anyone's any better than anybody else, which is what they kind of make it out to be.
Spiritual ego.
Yeah.
You're better than them.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is really important is the chakras, because chakras has been around for a really, really long time. I think Reiki was introduced in probably about 120 years ago. I think it was about 1902 or something like that. Before I go on, Ray's got a really good point that it is all distractions about doing the work. Like, doing our inner work is so important. And when you're distracted by everything on social media, basically, because it's not you, you're looking outside for a savior or, like even like the politicians. Jesus. Sorry, some people are going to be offended by that, but they're all savior programs. They're all somebody else coming to save you. And if we look at how we can save ourselves, even just in small scale, if you're not looking at big scale of, tomorrow or, in a lifetime, if you're just looking at today, it's sometimes easier to just break it down. All right, what can I do today? What, that happened and I was really annoyed, or I got really angry, or why did I react like that? What's my pattern? What pattern am I continuing to do? Because traumas are always patterns. And as soon as you can recognize that pattern, you can work on changing that. And we all want to work on being the best version of ourselves. So if we can work on ourselves, just looking at the small stuff, then we can eventually turn it into something bigger.
Hello there, Neptune. Good to see you made a live, brother. If you don't follow Neptune Triton or Triton Neptune, because he's getting blocked in his feeds as well. We get a lot of information, share a lot of information back and forth. We don't really share that much with him because we're learning off him, but he's one of the many sources that we use. And Savior Syndrome is something that we agree with, because everybody needs to feel that someone out there's going to do the work, because they know that they're so busy. And this is what I'm saying. This is such a complex sort of subject when you realise is that everybody's got this overlay of their system making you tired, through chemicals and through bad food and through, overworking, and then through overspending, and then a debt-based society, and then the breakdown of community values through, destruction of, churches and small towns, and, all of this stuff is basically the mud that that we're getting built on these days. And then we tell you to look after yourself and fix yourself, and everyone's like, man, I'm just too tired, and I'm just too busy to do the work. So it's easy to just fall into that. Look, I'm just going to flick on the live, and what's it tell me to do? It tells me to meditate, and it tells me I'm a fantastic person because I'm awake to the system, and that's going to give me enough happy juice to get me through tonight and get me to work tomorrow. And it's easy to fall into it. So we're not criticizing anybody to fall into it. We like I said, we fight for this, and we do this because the pair of us have the fortune of having enough time to do so, enough interest to do so, and two completely different ends of the spectrum for the way that we learn and the way that we view the world. I mean, a year ago, Leah was telling me about the planes that were flying over, blowing shit out their ass, and I was just like, look, I'm not ready for that shit yet, you know. Like, and I had to go into legislation, and I had to go into government documents, and I had to go into grants and funding, and sort of make that 3D real for me before I could just sort of jump off onto the next spaceship that was flying through with information. So, yeah, it's easy to, like I said, fall into that spiritual trap because you're finally waking up out of the trauma trap, which is sort of ego based, and then you jump into the spiritual trap of, you know, you are.
Yeah.
And look, so for me, I was stuck in the 3D sense. I was stuck in the trauma trap with the ego overlay. The ego was my shield. It defended me from the pain that I was hiding with my trauma. You know, what Leah's work did was basically unlock my energy for me to look after, you know, get rid of clear negative energies and entities that I didn't know how to do that for myself. So that's, you know, that cleared a pathway for me. And like I said last night on the interview with Jason Miles, if AI is intended to be a computerized version of all things that we know that is punched into the internet, all the truth, all the lie, all the information, disinformation, misinformation that the world puts in there, if that makes it the smartest being in the world, well, I can tell you, once your trauma starts getting healed and once you start tapping into what is actually possible through us, we are the most powerful beings in this world. And they're just the little drip of connectivity that you get as you start rebuilding yourself, as you start reconnecting to source and having the correct energy flowing through your body. My brain is lit with, you know, the capability to have information. Like, I did a nearly 2-hour video last night at 7:30 at night with Jason on everything political in the political landscape. You know, we wake up this morning, we look at each other and we're like, you know, when I told her it was an 8 o'clock thing, and she's like, oh, you know, like, it's like...
Only because you told me 9 o'clock.
Whatever.
He told me 9 o'clock. And then 15 minutes before, he's like, are you ready?
Yeah, daylight savings, whatever. We're going to turn this live off if I get angry.
But he's so right. Like, you know, you really don't know how powerful you truly are. And once you can remove those savior programs and really focus on yourself and what yourself is telling you, that's when we really truly do step into our power. So that brings me back to what I always wanted to say with the chakras. So if you just search, I don't use the word Google anymore, so if you just engine search, AI engine search, any chakra, like if you just type that in, it'll come up with all of these pretty pictures of rainbow dots down your body. This is going to be a very, 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 very hard one for most people that are already using chakras or working with chakras to understand, but that's on them and that's their time. I just wanted to bring it to attention because I don't think there's enough people talking about it. It's an overlay. So basically anything that they do in the physical realm, so to speak, they're also doing in the astral realm, which is what we can't see, the energetic realm. So chakras being one of them, they've put it out into this spiritual community to make it look beautiful, and it does make sense. They've done a very good job of the way that they've presented it. But when you look at it from a different point of view, so I've removed my chakras. It's just an overlay. It's not something energetically you remove. You can't remove an energetic part of you. It's just an overlay that they put there, and basically they feed on that overlay. It's how they get through with your trauma. So they see your trauma, they're attracted to your trauma, and then they use that overlay to get into your energetic body. Everyone has it. So once you remove that, it's one way that they can't feed on you. And you know, I kind of look at them as, you know, leeches or mosquitoes. You know, if you had 100 leeches or 100 mosquitoes on your body, you're not going to just leave them there because they're going to be, you know, draining all your blood. And that's basically what they're doing on the energetic side. So once you remove that overlay, the energetic the energetic portals that I see on our body is 3. So you have, your intuition, you have your heart space, and then you have what Tony calls it the gut brain. So if your gut is your discernment, completely makes sense. Your heart space is what you need to lead with, and then your intuition is what you're getting your information through, I guess. So if you just think if those three are working together and those 3 are in alignment, then what do you need all that other pretty stuff for? I just I think that makes so much more sense. And like I said, they try and sell us all this pretty shit because it makes us feel good. All this nice stuff makes us feel good. And it, again, moves us away from the trauma, yeah, okay, it sucks, having to go through trauma and having to go through those feelings, but...
Well, can I just add on that too? Like, I see a lot of biblical versus spiritual sort of battling back and forth out there. And like I said, I'm still not sold on what is God, but I do believe in a higher power and a source. And I don't know whether it's a single source. I'm still working through that, trying to work that out for myself. But the whole biblical argument, and my argument was, the books have been around for religion for so long that they've tainted everything else. So why wouldn't they slowly but surely, subtly, change a few words here and there? I mean, even just in lawyered terms, how easy it is to change a couple of letters in the back of a word, want, will, or something like that in a lawyered sentence can be a completely different outcome. So if people understand how many times these people have had their hands on those books, that's why I sort of get a bit skeptical and go, well, did they write it that in such a way like they do in movies where they tell you what they're working towards, and then all of a sudden, here we are, the Christians of the world are running around saying, rapture and Revelations is upon us. And I'm like, well, maybe that's just them telling us what they're doing, and it's another part of the fuckery. Excuse my French, but
didn't have movies and
that's right. So
radios.
That's right. So that was
hundreds of thousands of years ago. So how did they?
That was their narrative. Yeah. So how could they have fulfilled their obligation to tell you what they were up to if they didn't have the ability to put those books out? And maybe they were doing that. Maybe they were doing that when they had. All of the energies and the different pyramids and the different things that are there, and maybe that's why they went away. But my point on all that was, the same people who now live on the spiritual sense and not the biblical sense, and they say that their side is right and not this side is right, will protest that the Bible is full of full of tampering, and the religion is full of tampering and all of this sort of stuff there. And I'm like, hang on. But the same people who've been in the same control probably wrote all the same information into books first before it came to your internet. So it's a hypocrisy to say that only the Bible could have been tampered with and none of all the all the spiritual things, because they all came from books too. Remembering that all of this has been written down, transcribed by some guru sitting up on a mountain somewhere supposedly, and with his coloured crayons and he's colouring in, oh yes, I can see that is red up there, and it's a beautiful purple here in the middle, and so I don't even know whether when they were originally like I always joke that Mum's so old that when she was a kid even rainbows were in black and white, so I don't even know whether the colouring, when did that come in, and is that just something that we see? And I understand that we can see that now, but you just see that there's so many things that are out there that can be manipulated and changed to make it prettier and make it happier. And even when you look at the opposite version of it, when you see a weather map these days, the weather maps are like red, heat is now this massive, really scary red over the top of over us. So they've just turned up the dial on what red looks like, and it just means, a 38-degree day. And it's like, oh, Australia tomorrow is going to be 38 degrees and this horrible devilish red over the country, like everybody's like, oh my goodness, we can't go outside, we'll probably melt. And it's just a play on vision. It's just another way to manipulate, the same as the old, bar graph where, you have a massive big bar graph that says this big, oh, this many people have, suffered from, and only this many people, but that number could be 2 and that number could be 1. It's all just about manipulation and creating problems and fear and then selling you the solution to that. And so and all we're asking people to do is, we can't sit on these pages all day long saying that everything in the 3D world with the politics and the military and the money and all that sort of stuff is controlled and then just jump wholeheartedly into the pure waters of spirituality and go, it is all pure and it is all love and light, and spend your time even inside these arguing.
Well, even just that, like when people are channeling or there are some channels out there that are very good, obviously, but healers, all sorts of things, like, if you're still looking outside yourself, it's the same thing, you're still looking for somebody else or something else to help you or to save you. We can all help each other, definitely. There's I explained it to someone the other day that it's almost like we're a chain, there's always someone in front of you, there's always someone behind you, and we're moving this chain. It's like, okay, let's try and all move this way, but we're all connected. But when they say we're all one, that to me is a robotic term. We want you to all be the same. We may all be part of one creator way in the distance, but that's not really what is happening right now in this physical earth form. That's you can sort of pull pieces apart.
It's how they describe it too. So I'll just say hello to Chris from the Sunshine Coast and hello to Jeannie from Mexico. That's pretty cool. I love seeing how far these conversations reach. And like we said, they're just a piece of a monstrous jigsaw puzzle. So we just try and provide peace. And if we can spend the time that you might not have, and be an edge. Everybody loves an edge piece in a jigsaw puzzle. The goal is sort of try and build some framework, and then use your eye to fill in the middle. That's what we're trying to be, is an edge. But when you talk about we are all one, we are all part of one thing, doesn't mean we are just one thing. So my finger and my ear is all part of my one body, but they are not alike. And they have two completely different functions, and yet they are one part of my body. So I do agree that we might be all part of one consciousness in a sense, but that doesn't mean that we're all just ants, and our job is just to provide food, energy, protection for the Queen. And that's been why I've sort of always pushed back against the total domination of the God in the Bible sense of it always been just about. You are nothing without me. You bend your knee to me. You pray only to me. It's sort of just, I don't know. Maybe it's a trauma thing, and maybe it's a trigger thing. So that's why I'm just like, well, I don't need to worry about that, and I don't need to convince anybody about that sort of stuff. It's to me, it's the more I unpack my trauma and more I unpack the triggers, then maybe I will have the heart space or the head space to be able to read the Bible in a different way and get something different out of it. Maybe I'll be able to listen to the people that Leah listens to and go, that didn't resonate with me before, but maybe I had a blockage that was stopping that from being a connective point. But the point of it is to just leave those books open. Anybody that's walking around at the moment that is just like, I know because I am, and it's a one-up-a-thon. I have been awake for 3 years. I have been awake for 10 years. I've been awake since before I was awake. And I'm like, cool. And that ego sort of, people post on my page a lot of, like, pity I don't get a medal for being awake for the last 10 years and all the work that I've been doing. And I'm like, I don't see the relevance of that. Like time is, so my understanding of what I listened to for time the other day was, they've got us slowed down so much. If you've seen the movie, what's the one with the Leonardo DiCaprio? Inception. If you've seen the movie Inception, whereas as they go through the layers, time, a lifetime is a minute in a layer above it. So I think that's true, and I think that as we've come down into the third sort of dimension, as they pushed us down into this low negative energy, that our time to us feels like our lifetime, but as we go up, it may only be, a minute, an hour. And I understand everyone's going to say, there's no such thing as time, blah, 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 but I'm trying to explain it in the sense that just because there's a 30-year gap for when people woke up and when we're waking up and the time that's in between that in our little 3D construction of time, doesn't mean that, up here it's not divine timing, because that might be just, okay, I hit it on the minute. And we're just hitting it in the 30 years, so it feels long and painful for us, but that's because we're probably using the 1% of our brain that takes that long to be able to digest the information at this level, because like I said, once you start unlocking your trauma and stuff like that, your consciousness goes up that much that, maybe you could stick your head up to that level and get all the information at once and go.
Neptune's right. Expansion of consciousness doesn't have an ending, it's limitless. And it is. It's a journey, it's not a destination. And I think that's one thing that in the Truther movement we are always looking for that end result, but we need to be just more focused on the journey.
Yeah, and if you know that in a year's time, if you can see the future, jump out, do some, jump out into some weird shit and have a look and go, right, in a year's time you see it, and you know that it's over and that we win, but you see the journey is just chaos and war and stabbing and killing and murderous sort of things and starvation and suffering to get to there, or the other timelines it takes 3 years and that much doesn't have to happen. I mean, why everybody's just so keen on just getting to the end and never thinking about the journey. I mean, we want to get to some milestone resolutions with what we're going as we progress in life and as we understand more things. There will be some milestone probably moments in there where it's not like you fill out your sheet and go, yes, I've clicked all the boxes for 3D and I've now got a certificate of 4D. That is what they've told us that we need to do. So we are so used to, you finish grade 1, then you go to grade 2, then you get, finish primary school, you get your certificate, and then you go to high school. That is the mentality of this. It has to have a finish, and it has to have a process, and it has to be staged and stepped, and you have to all be moving at the same pace together. Otherwise, otherwise it doesn't work. So, yeah. So what's that say? Ray, we'll come out in the meantime. Yeah, that's right. So that's right. So in the I've been awake scenarios, if you've been awake for that long and you are suffering horrendously because I guess you probably haven't dealt with your trauma, which could lead to frustration if you haven't gone inside yourself and not necessarily done the real work. And this is what I talk about. Can I just do a little rant about stability? I've been doing the little rant about stability lately, about people going through what I class as a cyclone. The trauma is a cyclone, or the trauma is getting beaten up by the winds of their control. So they beat you up with trauma, whether it's this lifetime, and it might not even be yours. It might just be undealt with trauma from your parents that they pass that down to you. So your trauma is their lack of ability to deal with trauma. So might just pass that down between family to family to family. You might not actually have a significant trauma yourself. And I just talked about this yesterday with Anzac Day, been 108 years since the war, and those people came home with significant amounts of trauma of what they had to do for what they thought was right for freedom, because this is what the machine had told them that they needed to do. So they did the right thing for the country and for their family. They come home, no way to unpack the trauma. So they are distant, or they are alcoholics, or they are, suffering with mental health. As we can see with the veteran world of how badly they have to try and reconnect with society, and how much we just shit on them and leave them to their own device. Okay, so you get belted by their thing, and then when you're inside, as it moves over top of you, you're inside you're inside of the eye of the cyclone, and that is where people just beg for stability. And so if their plan moves left or moves right, you just do whatever you can to stay inside that, because you don't want to go through the other side of it, which is the healing of trauma. It's the equivalent of that, because you're already battered and you're already just held together, and you've got a bit of duct tape over here holding this on, and you got some chiro that helps you a little bit with your neck to keep that from your head from falling off. But you just find stability. That might be through medication, that might be through alcohol, it might be through your book club, or it might be through Bible studies on a Sunday. Whatever your stability is, you just don't want that to be rocked. And this is what we were talking last night, is like you do everything you can to hold on to that, and that's why when people like us change the narrative or challenge the narrative, that is rocking your boat. You know what I mean? So that's why they fight so hard to keep the narrative, not because they necessarily believe it, but because it's challenging you and shifting your
Morpheus
boat.
says it in the movie.
Does he?
Yeah. He says that people aren't ready to be unplugged because they depend on the Matrix.
For stability, that's right. For stableness in their life, because again, like we talk about the heart space, when you start refilling that heart space or start working out of that heart space, you genuinely start feeling just a bit of that trauma that you've got suppressed.
Jeannie's comment.
Jeannie, what's that? That bitch. Who's that?
She's talking about her mum, I would say.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, sorry. I was like, that bitch, I knew she passed her shit. Yeah, right. Yeah, they do inadvertently. Some actually cause you trauma by passing it down. You know what I mean? Like abusive children of abuse usually end up in abusive relationships, or end up abusive themselves. So like I said, you don't necessarily have had to have the trauma yourself. It could just be passed down from generation to generation from people not dealing with trauma. But by default, it keeps you in that perfect loop. And while ever like I spoke about, my trauma created a situation in my life where I wasn't able to be the hero of it. I wanted to be the hero of it because I didn't like what was happening, but I was too small and too young. So in the rest of my life, I created the bad guy in all situations, and I was the hero of all those situations. So everywhere I go and everywhere I work, I turn someone into a villain and I become the hero, so that I can replay over and over in my mind that feeling of defeating the villain. And they're not external. They never were. It was always internally. The villain was always still stuck inside me with my trauma, and the fear was always in there, and it was just what I had constructed in my own mind and that's where the ego came into it, to protect me from that feeling. So when Leah talks about looking outwards for people to save you, or looking outwards for people who trigger you, it's not that. It's inside you, because I can work on me, and that changes 20 people around me for the day. I don't have to go to 20 people and change each of them. Or you're a pain in the ass, you talk too loud. You're a pain in the ass, you don't listen well enough. You're a pain in the ass, you don't do what I ask you to do. You're a pain in the ass, you come to work late. You're a pain, all of these people that...
Which doesn't take away the fact of people being assholes, though. Like, people are still assholes, but it's how you perceive it. Like,
well, how it affects the rest of your day, too. Like I used to spend, one interaction with a dipshit would make the rest of my day shit. And anybody else that interact with me, if you scream and yell at one kid, if you've got 4 kids and one kid's playing up like a pork chop, and you give them a belt on the ass, and then it's goddamn hard to have a beautiful, happy, upbeat day for the rest of your day, because like the other 3 kids are going to get a tainted version of you, because you will get angry and you get frustrated. So it's more about dealing with you, with whatever. Come here. Are you photobombing? We've just got a little photo bomber here. Come on, stick your head up and say hello. Quick, we'll move on. Anyway, so I'm trying to get my head back on track. Indy's just floating around. So,
There was a couple of questions there. I'm going to scroll back up.
I don't know if I can do that. How do you do that?
Just scroll back up.
Oh, there you go. What do we got? Sorry, I'm just going to try and scroll back up and see if there's questions. Okay.
Down a bit.
Okay. Okay. Why does it just keep repeating the same
Yeah,
thing?
it is, ain't it?
All right. Sorry, and this is our second go at doing a live video, and we've certainly never sort of done one where we've been able to see the screen and be interactive. So we're still trying to work out how that works.
Oh, I think they're gone.
Yeah,
That's weird.
they just.
Oh, here we go.
Computer.
So Karen said, "How do you remove your own chakras?" Just visually doing it. Yeah. So if you do any remote viewing kind of work, which everyone can do, but it does take a lot of practice to, I guess, it's like a muscle. If it's like a muscle that we've forgotten how to move, or how to use. And there was another question under it, that's why I left it there. Yeah, the more you practice it, the more you can work with it. So yeah, with your chakra removal, there's quite a lot of other things that I do as well. Like there's lots of other things that they send to us to take our energy, and I guess a lot of it we just hand over because we don't know what's going on. But with the chakras, yeah, I just visualized, I just asked to see them. So I always talk to my subconscious, show me the chakra overlay. It might take a while for you to see it. Once you can see it, you can just use your own energy. So I never draw in any other energy. I only use my own. So you could maybe picture energy around you, or energy coming in from your heart, coming from your heart center back out, and destroying it, or pluck it off yourself and put it into a fire. There's lots of different ways you can do it. It's just finding a way that works best for you, what you can strongly visualize. There you go, Neptune's put one up as well. So yeah, there's quite a few different ways that you can do it.
Yeah, have a read of it's written as Triton Neptune on the message field, but have a read of that information there too. Like we said, it's just a collection of pieces that work with you, and all we're doing is trying to make sure that everybody doesn't just get banged into the narrative. The whole point of this is to make sure that we continue to ask questions. That's it. You know what I mean? It's just to continue to ask questions. Does that sit right with me? If it doesn't sit right with me, let's have another look.
Because when you're thinking about it and asking yourself questions, especially if you're asking them out loud, I find when I ask questions out loud, I will either have something put in front of me, like, a video might come up, or, the information might just come to me. It seems to be more, and I'm not saying I get this from an outside source, this is connecting with your soul, with your own energy. Well, that's what I do anyway. You might be different. You can do whatever you like. I'm not telling anybody what to do, but I think that if you connect to your own energy, you can't really go wrong, because you're not going, oh, well, am I getting the right information? Am I not getting the right information? It's only coming from you. So,
but also the judgmental society, sort of judgmental thing that they're trying to do too, even with the divisiveness of segregating us between, BLM, Ukraine wars, transgender topics, anything that's conspiracy theory, the whole COVID sort of situation, and then you throw that overlay into, I read something, you read something and you've got to destroy. Like I just, you get trolled all day long in these places that come from nowhere. Like I've got a tiny little following of people, and and have zero significance in the grander scheme of things. And these people who could be bots, or could be just morons, or could be just such boring humans in their own life that nobody's actually available to talk to. So they sit online and ask you to sort of explain your your conspiracy theory. So you give them your time and information, and then they just keep coming back with the same repeat narrative. And so it is frustrating out there. But the biggest thing, I had a mad bad day the other day. I haven't had a bad day like that for months and months. And Leah wasn't there. Leah usually helps me sort of clear energy or entities, and so I had to have a crack at it myself. So the goal of this was to make sure that you're listening, make sure you know what works for you, because the information out there is all, like I watched I was at the gym yesterday, and there was a trainer there, and God bless her. She's probably a PT, probably done 10-hour course online to get a certificate to say that she can tell people how body function and movement works. And there was a tiny, skinny little lady that was in the gym doing sort of heavy lifting for the first time in her life. And I sort of was watching some of the, techniques of, how she was getting this 50-kilo woman to lift 20 kilos above her head. And I'm sort of like, and you want to jump in because you have more knowledge than that, and you want to jump in and say, hey, well, don't do that. But at the same, that's a real life version of walking away from it. Whereas if that had been on the internet, if I had watched a video on there, I probably would have wrote, oh, everybody knows that you should put your offset your back foot, and had this big keyboard opinion. But in real life, I didn't do it. So imagine if we just turned off the internet and everybody's opinions didn't mean anything again because they weren't willing to share with them everywhere down the street. I mean,
I love the saying that opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one.
Doesn't mean we want to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's so true.
Well, it is, but that's what I'm saying is there's so much complexity to all of this that none of it makes sense because none of it exists, or none of it matters.
Yeah, it's
really.
Just an opinion.
It's it doesn't. None of it actually matters. It only matters in this tiny little bubble dome ball flat. Who cares? The amount of time and energy spent arguing over what is it's just unbelievable. Like to distract you, like Neptune said yesterday about what a coincidence that Tucker gets sacked from Fox. Writers, all of the writers, the Sun's doing all of its work, and we all need it. Everybody needs to be focusing on that and the energies and all of the shit that's going on in the spiritual sense. And instead, the entire feed all day yesterday was just running around going tucka 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 tucka. The only thing I saw that made any sense out of all of that was that the trans woman from the Bud Light commercial. There's a meme running around saying Dick Tucker is now going to be the new the new host of Fox Sports News, and it was a picture of her. That was about the only thing that made me laugh for the entire day. The rest of it, like you said, was just complete and utter distractions, and just designed to keep you frustrated or keep you angry or keep you on there saying, oh, that Fox is dead, rah, 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 just negative energy. It doesn't matter. They don't give a rat's ass how they get negative energy, just like the government doesn't care how they get tax. The tax is inevitable. We talked about this, that they create a dollar up here that doesn't exist. They give $1 to a big company like a mining company. So the mining company goes out and it mines. Oh, I'll go over on a map here, the map above me. Mines here in Australia, right? And it mines here in Australia, and it makes a profit. And if that right there and then it's got someone that says, look, we don't want to muck around with all this tax. It's too much paperwork, too much trail or whatever. We're just going to pay our tax. That's it. That money goes back. They pay their debt back. They pay the tax to the government once, just there and then, and industry just stops dead from that dollar. But what they do is they incentivize that dollar to move around, so that those people don't want to pay tax, so they go and buy a shed, and they go and buy another mine, and they go and buy all this stuff, and those three people now have got tax to do, and so they move it all around. So they don't care where they get the tax from. In fact, they love it when it gets right down to the person like me and you as a person, because we will pay the highest amount of personal tax because there are no write-offs other than to buy something for $1 and hope to get 47 cents in the dollar back if you're in the top tax bracket. So that's the same as energy. They don't care where they get the negative energy from. It doesn't have to be out of their playbook of this is the best tasty negative energy. It just has to be negative energy. You just have to be fearful. You just have to be angry. And the live video was a picture of the vibrational chart where you talk, that low fear, regret, anger, all of those things down. Shame, all of those things that sit down the bottom are just such dense, heavy, hard to carry negative energy that makes you tired and miserable from having to deal with it compared to how you feel when you're, up in the top end or at least, balancing through, like a nice little... But
that's not saying that you can live in that high vibration all the time,
hell no.
too.
No, like...
We still live in this 3D realm and...
Yeah. My problem when I had mental health issues and still have mental health issues and probably always will, but it helps me... It actually helps me dissect everything else in life because I see the pattern of that now, which I see the pattern of my trauma, which I see the patterns, makes it easier to see the patterns out in the real world. But if this was the straight line in here, then I would have these massive, when I had good energy and I didn't have anxiety, I'd have these massive spikes of energy, and I'd use 180% of it, because I knew that on the downward spiral, I would be going right down here, and I would be feeling like shit, really feeling like shit. So I'd say I'd use all my energy up here, see everybody, talk to everybody, have a party, drink some beers, and then all the way down here I'd feel like shit. And then I used to, down in this going down and feeling like shit part is where I used to put all my energy to try and stop feeling like shit. And it was too late. That was not the place to put my energy. What I actually had to do was taper this spike up here, so I had reserve energy for when I came into here. So I was mentally clearer, and my body was functioning better, and I wasn't as tired. So then, all of a sudden I went like this, and I just, have this nice little sin wave of good days, bad days, good days, bad ways, but they're not fantastic days and they're not horrible days. It's just, all you're trying to do is find that beautiful sort of balance between, because it can't be all good and it can't be all love and light. That's not what it's intended to be. There's more systems in your body that rely on triggers and stuff like that too. You can't just be walking around in a war zone going, happy, love and light, and stand on
all that does is suppress your emotions.
Yeah, stand on a...
Same as trauma.
And then you don't want to get too far on the other end. I'm watching a video with my daughter the other night, and she's so goddamn beautiful that, listening to her explain what she's watching, she's a talker in the movies. I don't know where she gets the talking from. Probably a mum. She's talking during the movie, and I'm so... raw with my emotions now that I've broken down a lot of the shielding that I had. I'm crying, and just love, just pure love coming out of me, and I'm crying, patting her on the thing, and she happens to look up at me, she sees me crying, freaks out, she cries. She's never seen me cry before, and she's like, holy crap, if Dad's crying, he's in pain or something's wrong. And I'm like, no, darling, it's a cry of love. And she's like, I don't understand what that means, love crying, and then you have the opposite of, going to the dawn service yesterday, and, I can't help but shed a tear standing there staring at my flag, thinking about all the people that died to give us the freedoms that we're taking for granted at the moment, while, these, freaky people are running around doing their nefarious things in the background and keeping us so distracted, fighting with each other and arguing, and, people, transgender people running into Christian schools because they're getting weaponized or radicalized through the same technology that we bomb and invade countries, for terrorism. They're doing the same thing in those sorts of communities, and they're running into Christian schools and shooting kids, apparently. But that's the message that they give out to people, because even when you're not affected by it, you get negative and you get sad, and so they don't care where they get the energy from.
Yeah. I'll just go back to Chris's question. Are most addictions trauma-based? So I would say yes, but it's how that comes about. So when we've got trauma, the entities find us. The entities there's different levels of entities. So there's weak ones that don't really do much. They just might put thoughts in your head of, not feeling the best. Then there's stronger ones, and then there's stronger ones again. So there's certain ones that might push you towards that. So if you've got some heavy trauma, and I'm not saying this is you, and you might be just generally asking the question. So if someone's got some really, really heavy trauma, which a lot of people do, unfortunately, then it can allow these entities in, or you might turn to the addiction of whatever it may be, the drug of choice, and by taking that, it can allow the entities in. So either way, the trauma is the reason. So if you can clear up the trauma or work on the trauma, and I know that that's absolutely terrifyingly hard, especially if you are, addicted to something. Addictions are hard. I've been addicted to things in the past too.
Sorry, Neptune. Can I just interject? Can I just interrupt?
Yes.
I just did. The same for me. I believe the same. So that little thing where I was talking about going up and going down, and going up and going down. For me, if your baseline is a pretty good life in first world country, then we live in a nice house in a nice area for us. Our baseline's pretty high. So even if you sort of take some drugs, the drugs peak. Like most people get the same high. They talk about the same thing when they take LSD, acid. It's similar things. So there's obviously a ceiling to what that drug can do. So if I start from here and I take a drug and I go up here, well, without the drug, I only go back to here. What I see with a lot of addictions is people don't, when they go through that line to back down to here is their baseline or how they feel on a regular basis. If they feel shitty and they're negative and they're sad and they're right down here, whatever they take as their addiction or their drug, it gives it that way up there. But it's so far to fall back to their normal life that they sort of, I see them sort of medicate and remedicate with that thing that keeps them good, because what they're trying to do is keep them, self bouncing up high. Now that trauma is what is probably setting the baseline. I hope I didn't interrupt and give a point that wasn't on point.
So the trauma's never going to go away, but by taking the drug, I guess it makes you feel like it's not there because it makes you feel better. But yeah, and sometimes you like if you cannot work on that yourself or start that clearing or that that healing process, then you might need some help from someone that can clear energies. I would highly advise energy clearing over anything else, over any healing, so to speak, because the clearing, I think, is the first place that we should probably start. Clear your energy and start with that clean slate. They're gonna come back, because you're still unhealed, and we're all unhealed. Like, I don't proclaim to be some healed guru or anything like that. We're all it still comes back to that journey. We're all still working through that, but it's the big heavy stuff that we've got to try and move.
So just a point, neither of us are professionals. We are not professional medical people. We're not psychologists, psychiatrists, and we do not recommend throwing your medication out if you've been down that track. We're talking about going on a journey, and when you go on a journey, if you know that you're going to start a journey in a couple of weeks' time, you start getting your shit packed, you start planning your travel route, you know how much fuel you need, you know how much money you need, you know how much food you need. That is the journey that we had to go on. If you just decide tomorrow to say, I'm going to drive to the Nullarbor, with your Hyundai, something tragic is going to happen to you along the way because you are not prepared for this journey. So, I just see, you said, there was a question there that said, there's a comment there from someone saying that they just got off the medication for 30 years. I mean, that's an ugly,
Well, that's huge. Congratulations.
That's huge. Congratulations to you. And I I only had 4 years of it and had to get it off myself. But I had to clear the energies first, and then I had to do some trauma work. And I still had a pretty bad day the other day that I hadn't had for 3 or 4 months, and I didn't understand why. So we're not professionals, and I guess we're not trying to be. If you see, we had a tavern at one stage in our life.
Just trying to give an alternate view, I guess.
Just a critical thinking view to start these conversations. These conversations used to just be had around a fire, or these conversations used to just be had at chat groups, or friends used to have these conversations, these deep, meaningful conversations. Now we're just talking about what happened on Love Boat. And did you see Tony cheat on Sarah? You're like,
I think Chris is just asking, can it be passed down from generation? I don't know if it can actually be passed down per se, but monkey see, monkey do, so to speak. Like if a child is seeing that from birth, then they're naturally more than likely going to do that as well. And that goes for anything, not just addictions. That's habits. That's how you speak, how you treat people. It's everything. You can see it in today's society how that chain reaction happens.
And if there's no consequence, particularly online, when there's no consequence, get smacked in the mouth if you cross the line that you wouldn't cross in the car park at Coles, then that's the other one as well.
But you could have, whoever this person is, they could have something in their genetics, in their DNA that is a part of that.
And in saying that too, when I did my trauma healing, on a med bed, they were telling me that it was clear to me in the womb, because I was getting the information that my mum was feeling and stressing about and thinking about and worrying about. That was passing through to me as well. So they were saying that I knew I was set up. I was set up with that thought process of I didn't have a dad.
Well, yeah, you're around the energy.
I'm around the energy from the get go. You know what I mean? So, when I'm getting prepared to be born, I'm already like oh shit. I'm down to 50% of my network for the family structure. And so yes, the addiction could be passed on from generation. Maybe not necessarily addiction, but the framework for what caused you to need that addiction.
The energy's there.
Well, the pattern.
Yeah.
So like I said, look for the pattern rather than the addiction, because sometimes the pattern is more prevalent. I had a friend that was, madly addicted to pokies, and then he was madly addicted to steroids, so he was super healthy, and then he got madly addicted to ice, and now he's madly addicted to try and have a good life. But the addiction, the pattern was always there more than what it was that was at the other end, and as the feeling of whatever it was that he was taking wore off, the consequences sort of follow afterwards, but that's the pattern that you need to sort of look for.
Yeah, the patterns are huge.
To Neptune's question, did we both wake up at the same time, or one wake up first and awaken the other? Leah definitely woke up first, but completely different tracks.
Yeah, it's probably a whole another video in itself, to be honest, Neptune. To make a shortened version, I guess. No, we definitely didn't wake up at the same time, and I think that is happening with a lot of people, a lot of couples, and yeah, so it's okay for us to sit here now and be on the same page, but that definitely wasn't the case for a very, very long time. So yeah, if there are people out there that are going through that, that might be another video that we can make at another time of.
Oh, definitely. Like, we live in a throwaway world. I mean, we got together, and 6 months later, I'm dealing with the trauma of a 14-year breakup, loss of my kids, halving of my large amount of wealth, if not more. Loss of my stepdad, loss of my granddad, all in the space of 4 years, and I find this beautiful woman, and 6 months later we're running our first business together. Not only living together, but move towns, 1,000 kilometers away, move towns and start running a business together, where I go on to bleed, $400,000 of the last of my money in there, and the trauma fires up mad, and I have 10 years of anxiety and depression. And this poor rock has to get dragged along behind me the entire way. Now,
but that was my pattern too. So you can sort of see how it kind of interjects. My trauma was related to that, so that's why we were together.
That's right. So it's about working it out.
Is my child crying?
No, she's singing.
Okay.
It's about working it out rather than throwing it out. You know what I mean? Like, the times that we could have thrown it out, easily could have thrown it out. And it just, like, throw $2 million to us 7 years ago and say $1 million each, you'd probably throw it out, because, you could go, oh, well, I've got money to get out of this situation. It's not that debt kept us together, but, the reality was, it wasn't that easy just to walk away from what we had dug ourselves into anyway. But instead we knuckle down, we find a way through. We've had to completely change just about everything about our life in the last 2 or 3 years since we've been waking up. Everybody talks about, these negative, these negative aspects of being a truther, fear-mongering, cult-leading, crazy people. And I'm like, we're growing our own food. We're filtering our water. We're preparing to be completely self-sufficient off the grid. We exercise more. Just lock that bottom of the camera. We exercise more. We do things that make us happier. I'm so creative. My creativity is just flows out of me now. If I'm not building a garden,
they definitely don't like us being creative, because we're using our
And
proper energy sources that we're supposed to use.
And that's the
so
energy
be creative.
Well, every time we work on our positive energy, that's less negative energy for them. You know what I mean? So that's why they don't like it as well. It's like, hey, we don't, we see our energy reserves are starting to get lower because you pricks aren't giving us any negative energy anymore, and they're not connected to the same energy that we are. So, they need our negative shit energy. That's the way that I would describe it. Unless that, I don't consent to sending them any energy or letting them take any energy anymore. So you can eat a dick. Get your own energy, you pricks. Because I like, now that energy flows through me, it's just like I'll just be shoveling in the backyard, and I'll be just chewing on something that thought in my mind, and how what it means, and and I'll throw the shovel down, and I'll run inside, and I'll press live, and I'll just start talking for an hour, and for an hour I'll just bleed it out there, and there might be one person watching, there might be 20 people watching, but the whole point was that to get the thought, let it just flow through me and through that creative sort of connection, and get that out there for people to digest. But it's my whiteboard, or it's my diary. It's my thoughts out there for other people to see what resonates with them, see what truth they can get out of it. And even the people that take the time to watch it and don't comment, or even the people that shit can it, I know that it gets to them, because if they're still thinking about it in 2 days' time, well, it's in their head. You know what I mean? Like if they're still trying to understand what the hell I said and why, if they're still trying to argue with me about it days later, and I'm not thinking about it, then that means my energy is I'm healing my trauma to the point where I haven't allowed that to negatively affect me. It came in, it went out. I go along with it back to what I was doing with my day. So, if you go to, like I said to a lady the other day, if you go to the shops and you someone says something negative to you, or you're treated rudely, or someone honks the horn at you, and you're like, give up yours, and back at them, and people these days, and you come home and you put your groceries up, and you front of people, and you write on there, people need to be bloody more considerate, blah blah blah. It's like, how long does it take you to get that feeling and the reaction out of there? Because that moron probably just drove off. They probably.
I still struggle with that sometimes.
It is, and that's what I said. I said something the other day, and I said, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. You know what I mean? Like, I still have the capacity to be, not a cool person if you get on the wrong side of me, and I'm trying to control that for my own good, not for yours. I'm not trying to protect you from me. I'm trying to protect me from me. I don't want to waste my energy on those sorts of people, because they're everywhere. And I can tell you now, I got 10 years of trying to fight against those people, thinking that they were the problem. It's not. Like, I released them from their obligations the other day in a video that said, you are not my enemy. I was, and I am not your enemy. You are. Yeah, and that's the truth of all this, is that, the only person I can work on a consistent basis, on a regular basis, who's worth the time to do it, is me. That's the end result of it, because the brighter my light shines, the more places I cast light into darkness, and people that are in the darkness that necessarily didn't even ask for my light can see it and can just start finding their own way. My light doesn't have to guide them out of the darkness. It just might lead them to open their eyes and look around and go, what the I'm full of cockroaches and rodents. You know what I mean? So I don't want to be here anymore. But that that starts making their light shine a bit brighter when they have a bit more hope, and they have a bit more happiness, and they have a bit more feeling of their own clarity. So they just inadvertently start shining their own light, which clears up that darkness. So that the moment I walk away from their life, they don't have to go back to darkness. The whole point is to help other people find their light, so that they don't be in the dark, and they don't need you to be their light. That's the way that I try to explain it, is that we don't give information out, and we don't do research, and we don't do these videos so that we can be your light. And the moment that this video turns off, you're back into darkness. We're doing it to teach people what we learnt from years of being in the dark, of how we did it ourselves, and how we took information from people, and how we lent on each other. And people out there don't have someone at the moment necessarily, so I know that's even harder. This is not an easy journey, because it's it's one that they've constructed every single way that they can. If they're not sending you some negative energy radio wave, they're punching through 5G, punching through 5G through you. If they're if they're not spraying some shit into the sky and calling it something else, if they're not blocking the sunlight where you should get your energy from, if they're not building concrete buildings everywhere to bash 42,000 people in the city per day with no connectivity to the land or to the earth or to the sun.
And then once you start going into the nanobot technology and all that sort of stuff,
then you go into
smash it from every angle.
Then you go into quantum dot technology. like we get it, but but that's what spins you out. You know what I mean? That's what spins you out, is trying to know all of the external factors that are doing it, and not having control over any of them. Whereas the internal is all that you need, and the small baby steps that you take is all that's necessary. Just being the person that you want to be. Like I said, if we reset the COVID sort of stuff tomorrow, just went, clapped their hands, and it was gone. The truth was out. Everybody that played a nefarious role, and it was jailed or executed, depending on what country they're in. If that was over tomorrow, we would still all have the same trauma that led us to be able to be coerced in the first place. I mean, this was just another chess move of theirs in the setup. Why we were able to be coerced, why we needed our job, why we needed our holidays so much, why we needed our community, why we needed to be able to go out for dinner and coffee, because they were all things that were set up prior to that to create the problem, and then they sell you the solution. And you understand what I mean? So getting rid of the problem, the jabs go away like that tomorrow, the people that did it go away like that tomorrow. Well, the same framework that was built for the last 20, 30, 40 years still exists. So the next problem is still able to be created and given to you because it's a pattern. So that's why we say find the pattern and beat the next problem, or not be in the situation where you can be coerced into the next problem, because that's easy to say. That's so easy to say for someone like me who works in the mines with a decent income. But like I just showed you, I've had my ass handed to me through divorce in terms of financial. My family, my kids getting taken away from me, going into business, with my current wife, and that being the underpinning foundation of our relationship that we had to bring ourselves back out of. Like the first year of our life, losing $100,000, like, ooh, and working full time to do that. That's just cash out of the bank. You know what I mean? Like that's not the 60, 70 hours each of us were doing in a business. And I'm a 32-year-old with 3 kids, and this poor lady took me on as a 26-year-old. With 6 years difference. 25-year-old at the time. But so it's not easy. It's not perfect. We're not telling you that we haven't walked a rocky road, and we're not saying that it's all over for us for struggles and But it's just seeing the pattern, and it's just having the conversation.
Awareness is key.
And it's just networking with the right people, but it's just working on yourself. You got much more? Because we could talk forever, but at the end of the day, we probably need to wrap it up.
I'm happy. Does anybody have any more questions before we jump off?
Yeah, look, the more people message us, the more it gets us thinking, the more we sort of can feel like we've got a point to alive. So once we have enough sort of feeling that there's something worth talking about, rather than just talking about the same thing. So a lot of these truth channels and a lot of these new age spiritual channels, all day, every day, they're talking about the same thing, and so we do try and that's great. Like, don't get me wrong, if you want to read Men's Health magazine because it talks about men's health every day, then that's fine. There's channels for that, but we're not content experts on anything, so we find it best to sort of be the jack of all trades and master of none. Well, that's the way that I try and sort of run the channel. Leah has her own channel called Spirit and Me, Spirit Plus Me.
Yeah.
On Facebook.
I don't do any lives or anything like that, though.
She doesn't do much with it, but that's because she probably needs your encouragement. So feel free to go over and follow her over there and ask the questions over there, so that the community. That's what I'm saying. So my community is chock-a-block full of people that from one end of the Aaron's talking, Aaron is talking about cabal and monetary systems and stuff like that, which is fantastic. It's great. I love having those conversations with him. But that's not where you need to. That's not necessarily where we need to make a network. So mine is a network of people that just want to critically think about all possibilities. And I always say I don't give a rat's ass why you're fighting against them, as long as you're fighting against them. So let's
And working on yourself.
and working on yourself. So working on yourself to make sure that you're the best ably, mentally and physically to fight back against them for as long as you can. Whereas Leah's very specific with the work that she does with the energy stuff. So that's why I say follow the likes of Leah on her page. Ask these deep questions on her page. Start a conversation on her page. I'm happy to jump over to her page because I just try to be some sort of moderator or mediator in the conversation, and I just like to talk, basically.
Yeah. Someone just asked, will you do this regularly? Is that Megan just asked, will you do this regularly? It's something that we can do more of, Megan. It's just, I guess, like everyone's busy, so we've got to try and find a time where we both line up. And, because we've got a little girl as well, so we've got to sort of try and make that work. And I like to have an idea of what I want to talk about as well. So I kind of want that concrete in my head before I feel comfortable to do something like this. But yeah, we can definitely do them more often if people are interested.
We could do this exact conversation tomorrow. Again,
we do this every day
this
anyway,
is
pretty much.
This is the way we sort of start most mornings anyway. This conversation, that's why I just said to Leah, like we should have this camera here and having these conversations, because that's where we sort of bring up most of the things that we talk to back and forth anyway. So these are just a conversation, and welcome to our lounge room. You know what I mean? Like the intent of these conversations is to inspire you to have more conversations. You know what I mean? So it's not it's not a hard and fast. We can do it any way that people like it. It's just about connecting community. It's just about having the right people in the right community. This is not about creating echo chambers where we can fluff each other up about it all the time. We're happy to have conversations. We're in Central Queensland. We live out in the sticks in Central Queensland. We're surrounded by mining and farming. They are fifth generation farmers and third generation miners. They all have money, so it's very difficult to get people to actually believe that there's some shit going on in the world that requires more attention than
it's very sleepy out here.
Make a dollar, spend a dollar. So we don't get much local traction. So 85% of the people that actually respond and have conversations on here either haven't met me and Leah personally, or live completely in different parts of the world. So that's what we love about the beauty of it. But then again, we do know that the 15% of people that have friended us, or have been friends with us, worked with us, lived with us, community, been around us for a long time, a lot of them watch and just sort of shake their head going, oh my God, I can't believe these two mad publican, alcoholic, crazy people have changed so much. But we don't care why they're watching or how they're watching, or if they're not watching. It's not about that. They will hopefully, as the Earth forces the bubbles to the surface, they will find a reason to it. And it's why I'm sort of really cautious about making sure that I try and stay out of the weeds a little bit with the calling people sheep and calling people stupid and the I told you so movement, particularly with the jab stuff.
It's not a heart space. If you can just think of coming from your heart space, then that's not a heart space movement. That's just a spiteful, you're an idiot and I'm not.
Yeah, and it's a blessing to be able to do what we do, not a curse for the people that can't.
Yeah, they're not the enemy.
That's what I mean. And so when people do start waking up, they find their own reason. They find the thing that pisses them off enough for them to start going against the system. There's a lot of information to take in that we've had the blessing of 2, 3, 5, 10 years to do that. So they're going to have to do it in 5 minutes. So I really want people to have that proud self-worth moment on your heart space that you did the best for your family with the information that you had, but forgive, not forget. But the ego side of it needs to be broken down, because we are a community, we are a country. We could if we wiped out every single bad person tomorrow with a click of a finger and found ourselves with only 95% of this country left over, because I don't believe there's more than that pull the major strings. What do? What's the first conversation have? Hey, what's up, brother? What's up, mother? What's up, best friend? What's up, workplace?
It's
you know,
it's the
like,
same process that's still
yeah,
going to happen.
that's right. So so if we rebuild this if we rebuild on mud, then somewhere along the line that trauma will cause us to make decisions that gets the wrong people back into power and puts people back to sleep with complacency again, and then the cycle repeats. It's probably repeated thousands of times during during however long this matrix energy prison has been running.
So Megan said, can you leave a link in my channel comments later? Yes, we can definitely do that, Megan, no worries.
Yeah.
And Aaron says, do you do Reiki? So Aaron, I think you missed the first part of the video. So you may want to go back and just watch some of that. So with Reiki is basically tuning into the false white light energy grid. And it's using those chakra overlays. So yes, it works. Everything works in the energetic realm of what people do. It all works, but it's at what cost? So if you're getting a Reiki session done and you walk away thinking, oh, that was amazing, felt fantastic, but in the astral, you or the practitioner might actually giving your energy away for that, then is it worth that? So I started with Reiki. There was something about it that I never liked, that I just felt like it was part of the journey that I had to do, that I had to go and have it done. And now I understand why. I didn't understand at the time, but I do now. So there's going to be a lot of people out there not going to agree with me, and that's okay. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. This is just my experience of what I've come across. So so basically when you have Reiki, for anybody that doesn't know, you balance your 7 chakras, and some people clear them. I used to clear them as well as balancing them, but it is tapping into that fake frequency of energy. It even says it in the Bible, that the devil is the biggest trickster. So if you look at things like the Bible for consciousness levels, don't take it literally, but look at it as scriptive. They basically tell you everything. So no, I don't do Reiki anymore. I haven't done it for quite a while, and I feel so much better for it. I was really sick for probably about 6 months, I reckon, after I started doing Reiki. I spoke to my Reiki master about that, and she said probably because you're doing so much Reiki, you'll be clearing a lot. To me, that's BS. To me, if you're sick, it's your body trying to detox from something. So to me, I was taking in false frequencies or, bad frequencies for my body, and my body was trying to detox from that.
Yeah. And Hope, Love and Peace just said RFK Jr. is running. So, we're Australian, and I can tell you that I understand more about American politics through this process than I do about my own countries, because it's easier to get data and speaking on it. But, I put posts out there the other day asking about gold, silver, or toilet paper, because we had a pandemic of toilet paper, for whatever reason during the initial COVID periods. But there's a lot of people talking out there now. So I just want to lean in and finish out with the spiritual, physical, intellectual, financial, emotional. So they're the 5 pillars that I talk about in my wellness journey to rebalance myself. And I think it's important that everybody sort of spends some time on it. And that's why my project is called Average AF, because if you don't find balance, you'll end up average as fuck. That's what Average AF always stood for. But if you go on the journey with us, you get to choose the F word that you are. So average and fun, average and fire, average and foxy, because people that need to understand that average is hard work. And if you put 20% of your time into spiritual, 20% of the time into physical, 20% of time into intellectual, financial, and emotional, that you can't be an expert at something when you're only putting 20% of your time into it. But that it's hard work to balance yourself out. If you literally spend all day long at the gym and you're a gym junkie, then you're probably going to suffer intellectually. you're definitely going to suffer, emotionally, and you probably, will struggle to be to be spiritually connected. So, it's not. It's about people being understanding that it is hard, and balance is hard, and average is okay. Because that's like there's a lot of work to be balanced, and being average at that just because of the percentages that you put into it. So, if people want to run around and be an expert at something and put 90% into one thing, you will see them fall off. They will tumble over somewhere along the line because. So yeah, spiritual, physical, intellectual, financial, and emotional is something that we need to work on. And when I talk about the Liam, sorry. When I talk about the intellectual and the financial side of it, that's why I talk a little bit about the money and being prepared for the fall of the fiat currency, which is something that we talk about too. So yes, they're all distractions. Yes, they're all negative timelines. Yes, they're all things that we have to give consent to if we talk about them or whatever. But there's a lot of people who've got a lot of work to do, and they don't just wake up and instantly know how to revoke their consent for the negative things that are out there. So being prepared for information is a good way to sit here and know. So we know right now that if they turn the power off, turn the water off, turn the food supply off, that we have made ourselves happy that we can continue to fight and to think and to work on ourselves and to meditate and to be good parents and to do all of those things because we have prepared ourselves for the inevitable the possibility that the negative timeline goes longer than we want it to. Doesn't mean we meditate on it. Doesn't mean that we don't revoke our consent. Doesn't mean.
Well, can I just say something about that, about meditation? So if there's people out there that have tried it and it doesn't work for them, I wouldn't stress about that. So I used to meditate and I don't do it anymore. I haven't been able to connect or do any sort of meditation for well over a year. I'd say probably 14 or 15 months now. So I just decided that it just wasn't right for me. That, maybe my energy system, my soul, whatever, was trying to protect me from something. And you do have to be very careful because when you meditate, you do go straight into the astral realm, which is their realm. That's what they control. And not trying to frighten anyone, obviously, but, you can open portals, you can invite things in, and whatever it's, cool or fun to to play around with energy and try and experience that, there's just so much more going on in the background that we do need to be aware of. And so if you could learn anything, I would suggest learning clearing energy over meditation.
And protection, yes, definitely, they kind of go hand in hand, protection and clearing. Protection can be as simple as just imagining, like I said, that spark of your soul, coming out of your body and just putting a bubble around yourself and your aura, all of your energy space, or you can do your house, you can do, your land. So I do those quite regularly. That's what works for me. And clearing can be whatever works for you. It's all whatever you can, imagine in your, see in your mind's eye and imagine in your mind's eye and focus on, and, working with what works for you. And I know that kind of probably sounds a bit strange for people that haven't done any of it, but once you kind of start, it kind of just goes from there. But, I find it works really, really well. But you do have to be quite dedicated because once you start clearing them, I just destroy them. I don't give them any mercy because I think, well, if you're taking my shit without me knowing about it, then you can. She does that in real life. She does it in real life. If I take $10 off her, she'll do the same thing. So it's not just she's not just being nasty to dark things. Vicky, you've always had trouble with meditation, so that comes back to the whole spiritual ego thing. Where they tell you this is how you should meditate and this is what you should expect from it. And if you don't, it's your journey. If you don't, you end up wasting all this time and have frustration that you can't do what they're expecting you to do because it's like,
and then
there's
no playbook. Wrong with me?
What's wrong with me? Must be connected. I've got to do this more or do that more. So it's about again, it's about them telling you what to do. It's about you listening to someone that demands that you do it the way they're doing it. I was,
Yes, you have to. Yeah.
Yeah, I jumped in and I jumped in and started. I used to meditate ages ago, a long time ago, before most of this process, and it was a completely different experience for me. I would always end up inside myself, and I would always feel like I was floating inside myself, and basically looking around in the space and different. And now something has happened, probably with the upgrades that are going on, either through just naturally through the sun or the work that I'm doing or the trauma that I'm healing, and then I find myself, astral projecting instead of doing what a traditional thing. So at first I'm fearful of it, and then I'm thinking, oh, look at my cool new toy, and then people start telling me, like, just be careful, dude, because like Neptune would say to you, like, you're a whack-a-mole. You're basically a whack-a-mole, or in Australia it'd be like, the little gophers and the crocodiles that pop out and the kids whack their heads when they pop out of their holes. He's like, that's what you're basically doing into the fourth dimension or the astral realm. You're sticking your head up there. So there's 8 million souls on the planet, and you're just like, only a couple of them are sticking their head up with this, sticking their head around, going, oh, cool, I'm doing some cool shit, and they're just like, whack, and then all of a sudden, that
just go,
put all their energy, their negative energy, point their shit at you, do what they did this morning, do what they did this morning, which was we put our intent of the live into the framework and the paper, and for the first time in history, I couldn't get on it to anything, so we've had to log into Leah's computer.
I just thought it was so funny.
It's hilarious. Like, never happened before, not with any live, because I don't ever write anything, I just go live. But this time I actually wrote a big description saying that what we were talking about with energy healing and negative entities and all this sort of stuff, and then what do you know? You're going to go log on there 15 minutes before it and just complete and utter chaos, censored, couldn't get in there. You're not able
tried
to do
2 computers and his phone, and it wouldn't let him log in.
Yeah, so I mean, like, sticking your head up, like saying, oh, let's meditate when you don't know what you're doing, and
Well, it's more the clearing, that, once you start clearing, you become a target. So you do have to be careful of that. So, but the more you do it, the stronger you get. And they're not, they're piss weak. They've got nothing on you. Like, you are so much stronger. And if you kind of look at them like that they're just an annoying flea that you can just flick off.
But if you don't flick it off, how annoying can one little flea be?
Yeah.
I got stung by a wasp in the back of my head the other day. This thing is this big, and it hit me like something hit me with a brick in the back of the head. So if you don't think that, if you don't think these things have got the ability to bring your body down, it's terrible. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for everybody that jumped on. Sorry for those that got on late and found it. Obviously, it's still available as a normal video to go through and digest at your leisure. It is quite long. Lots of information in there. Bit different to what I usually do on my channels. That's why I invited my lovely wife over to do the live with me. Like I said, jump onto Spirit Plus Me for Facebook. If you want to have more in-depth conversations with Leah, feel free to message me at any time. I'm certain, I'm not big enough to not have the time to talk to people that are friends on Facebook or followers. That's the great part about, just having our little niche of people that we want to talk to.
Yeah, and everything that is discussed with me is obviously all 100% confidential. I don't even talk to Jodie about anybody that messages me things. So if you have questions, feel free to just message me, either on my on my personal page or on my work page. It doesn't matter either
and
one.
Sometimes it's just good to have a conversation with people that are on the same wavelength as you, because there's a lot of people are out there that are on your own, that live in cities and live in 3x3 squares, and all of this fuckery that's going on in the world, and just nobody talks to each other anymore, so you don't even know what they think. Whereas I talk to coal mining people now, and out of a group of 10, I'll always get 3 that actually know more about the situation that's going on. People know about spiritual stuff, people know about more than they talk about, because they're all sort of walking around fearful of being the person to start the conversation for fear of being ostracized from the conversation. So I'm like, so you say nothing and talk about dumb shit so that you don't get ostracized from a conversation that you don't want to have anyway.
Yeah. So so Megan just said she's on her own. So if you ever want to if you've got a question or if you just want to chat, just message me. I am a busy person, but I'm more than happy to chat to people for sure. And I've been through it too, so still going through it sometimes. So reach out if you need to.
We had a lady reach out the other day that asked me if I had time. We end up having an hour and a half conversation because I stick earphones in and I'm building a wall, building a fence while I'm talking to her. So, I am, plus sign spirit, plus sign me, Karen. But thank you, Megan. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you all the people from all the other countries.
Thank you, everyone, for jumping on today. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a great chat, and I hope we got a lot out of it. And like I said, let's always continue the conversation. Go and grab a coffee or a glass of water or whatever it is, and let that resonate with you for the next bit of time that you can give to it. I know people are working, people are about to go to sleep in other countries, so whatever it is that this does for you, whether it's just invoke thought, or whether it's open another book, or whether it's to reopen a book that you might have closed, or whatever it is, we appreciate your time, and we hope that we can, like we said, continue growing.
I liked the live better than the video.
Oh yeah, the live's heaps better when we bit like this, when we can actually see, what they're, what people are saying.
And no buzzing because it's on my phone.
Yeah, it's on my phone where it's like all that. All right, thank you. Like I said, the planet or the Earth that's behind us, that's what we're fighting for here, and we're fighting for the right for our children to be able to live as long as and prosperously as we can on this planet. Whether when it's time to go, it's time to go. But until then, let's make it as a greater place to possibly be as it can, and that starts with working on yourself. So have a great day. Bye.